has cost every citizen of Somerset a great deal of waste of money and time. SouthWest One is a joint venture between Somerset County Council, Taunton Deane Council, Avon Somerset Police and IBM, one of the world's biggest IT firms. This is a classic example of how not to do public procurement. At 2 o'clock in the morning 5 years ago, an unlikely cast of characters were gathered. The county councillors, I can say, were red-eyed, the IBM executives passed around the pen, and everybody signed. It was done out of offices and in total secrecy, even though it involved hundreds of council staff and hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money. Somerset's chippy little chief executive, Alan Jones, said afterwards, in 5 years' time, people will look back on this agreement and say it's the best thing we've ever done, and I quote. I was, I will admit, suspicious from the word go. IBM, as most people know, is no charity. It prides itself on fat profits. The joint venture was never equal anyway. IBM owns 75% of the business. But it has taken, I'm afraid, 5 long years to get to the ghastly truth. I've actually now obtained a copy of the original IBM bid. There were only 2 serious contenders for this, IBM and BT, British Telecom. They were asked to do some blue sky thinking, and IBM came up with some bizarre extras. Pure fairy dust, total fiction, a romantic dream of our country and its wild ambitions of its chief executive strutting the world stage, hand in hand rather bizarrely with IBM. And here, Madam Deputy Speaker, are some of the promises. We'll increase the economic wealth of Somerset by 600 million every year. We will create 400 new jobs instantly. We will build a new industry of environmental science. We will provide the infrastructure for a new university. We will deliver broadband in Somerset within a single year. We will build an iconic headquarters. I think that's what my Spanish friends would call a load of cojones. Yet, Councillor Jill Shortland, don't name me, with the leader of the Liberal Democrats and her pea-brained sidekick, Councillor Sam Crabb, once a banker, funny enough, so he claims, more likely as a junior clerk, swallowed the lines, the storyline, hook, line and sinker. You do need to be really seriously stupid not to spot holes in IBM's bid. IBM pledged to get Somerset wired up for broadband within a year. Quite impossible without the help of BT, and I'm afraid BT, quite rightly, was far too sensible to suggest it. In fact, Somerset is still negotiating with the government for a multi-million-pound grant to wire up both Devon and Somerset, which is heading along. IBM, I'm afraid, was telling a huge porky. Of course, if you're a council and you have highly paid officials, to spot the pitfalls, they should be doing so. But the councillors, I must say, were at the very best dim, if not reckless. The only other explanation is that the palm's being greased. So who recommended that Somerset should go with IBM? The project leader appointed the then chief executive's Alan Jones, and the lady was called Sue Barnes. Mrs. Barnes, as it happens, was married, as it happens, to the chief constable of Avon and Somerset, Mr. Colin Port. 6 months after the secret contract, the police joined the venture, dare I say it, funnily enough, on more favourable terms. The police received an enormous bung from Mrs. Barnes' employees, Somerset County Council. There is hard evidence that Somerset provided a subsidy to the force. I have seen emails from the Assistant Chief Constable confirming it. Somerset's former Director of Resources, Roger Kershaw, was given executive powers to negotiate the arrangement. Apparently, no councillors were told. The payment to the police was deliberately concealed in the county's accounts of 2008-2009. I'm calling actually on the Secretary of State to reopen these accounts for inspection because I'm afraid you'll find there's a can of worms in them. Funny enough, Mr. Kershaw once worked for Warwickshire County Council. Mr. Port was a senior officer in Warwickshire County Constabulary. This is where the IBM data centre for Somerset and where their records are stored. Warwick, I don't need to tell anybody in this honourable house, is in Warwickshire. Mr. Port went on to join the board of SouthWest One, an obvious conflict of interest if there ever was one. It took substantial publicity before it dawned on the Chief Constable that his position on the board is untenable. By then, the credibility of SouthWest One was even more untenable, and they promised to save taxpayers 200 million over 10 years. The actual savings are minimal, and the losses of SouthWest One now run close to £50 million. Somerset was forced to chuck out its own computer system and spend over 30 million of taxpayers' money on IBM kit and software called SAP, S-A-P. This dreadful system refuses to play grants, double pays others, mucks up priest rotas and puts sensitive information at risk. I'm afraid it's Mickey Mouse software. IBM used its Indian division to design the software to save money. When SAP grounded in a halt, they flew into a contingent of Indian IT workers who stayed in Taunton, the county town, for months trying to fix it. Guess what? They failed. Alan Jones actually claimed it was all going swimmingly. Roger Kershaw went to Canada at IBM's expense to express a conference entitled Successful Outsourcing. Sam Crabb and Jill Shortland, both still councillors, both Liberal Democrats, tried to blame me and the trade unions for rocking the boat. The trade unions, would you believe it? The truth was crystal clear. No other local authority or police force has joined the SouthWest One ever. It's a rubbish venture. In May 2009, the voters removed the Liberal Democrats out of control of Somerset County. The new administration got rid of Alan Jones, the chief executive, and it cost the taxpayers £341,000 to do so. At least he was gone. Roger Kershaw, the finance director, quit before he was pushed, and the new team started to renegotiate the awful deal with IBM. Many of the staff transferred to SouthWest One, I'm glad to say, are back at Somerset County. Much of that work has returned to the county, but the ghost of this ghastly contract haunts us. When the economic crisis arrived, public spending was cut, which meant that SouthWest One had less work. Unfortunately, there was a booby trap in the contract that forces Somerset to compensate IBM if spending falls. Last week, the County Council had to take the decision to pay £2.7 million from contingency funds to pay the company off. If the spending remains at the current levels, which it probably will do, Somerset will have to fork out £2.7 million every year for the next 5 years. That's £13.5 million plus a £5 million subsidy to the Avon and Somerset force. This vastly outweighs any mythical savings that SouthWest One claims. SouthWest One, just to rub salt into this, is trying to extract more money from Somerset by suing them. The marriage is over. Reminds me of another marriage we're in at the moment. But there's no escape. On September the 27th, 5 years after the day the contract was signed, Somerset could legally terminate the whole mad thing. But the price of quitting is so high, we're stuck. The blame lies fairly and squarely with Alan Jones, Roger Kershaw, Sam Crabb, and dare I say, other second-rate councillors. Al Capone would actually be rather proud of them in a bizarre way. They behaved as though they were working for IBM. It's a national, not a local scandal. The district auditor gave SouthWest One glowing reports. The Audit Commission whitewashed the lot. There is now overwhelming evidence to prove that the auditors were grossly negligent. SouthWest One should be and must be examined properly by the National Audit. Only then can I see a happy ending to this ghastly fairy tale.